was the night before Halloween, and my friends and I were pumped for the annual haunted hayride through Miller's farm. Every year they turned their huge cornfields into a winding maze filled with elaborately costumed actors ready to jump out and scare you. The hayride was legendary in our small town, and just about every teenager looked forward to it. This year I went with my 3 best friends, Sarah, Tyler, and Mike. We arrived at the farm around 8 p.m. and the place was already packed with people. The line for tickets stretched all the way back to the parking lot. Distorted carnival music blasted from loudspeakers as the tractor pulled wagon after wagon full of screaming riders into the looming cornstalks. We bought our tickets and waited in line, laughing and gossiping as we inched closer to the front. It was a clear, moonlit night and stars twinkled brightly overhead. The air held a slight autumn chill that raised goosebumps on my arms. Finally, it was our turn. We climbed aboard the creaky wooden wagon along with about 20 other people. Hay bales were scattered around for seating. Sarah and I squeezed together on one while Tyler and Mike sat across from us. The tractor roared to life, and with a lurch we started along the muddy path into the corn. Right away, costumed ghouls and goblins began jumping out at us from the stalks. People shrieked and laughed as axe-wielding maniacs and blood-soaked zombies delivered their spooky lines. About halfway through the ride, we reached a clearing where a coven of witches stirred a bubbling cauldron over a fire while cackling, "Double, double toil and trouble." Despite all the jumps and scares so far, I was honestly a little underwhelmed. It was fun, but not as terrifying as I'd hoped. The actors were distant and their costumes looked cheap. I wondered if maybe I'd just outgrown the hayride thrill, but things were about to take a chilling turn. As we moved deeper into the corn maze, I noticed the path getting narrower and the rows of stalks pressing in closer. An unsettled hush fell over the wagon. Even the tractor's engine seemed to quiet. The stars directly above provided the only light now. Suddenly, the tractor's headlights flashed over a gruesome sight ahead. A body hung from a noose tied to a tall cornstalk, legs dangling lifelessly. The passengers gasped. As we passed under it, the head turned to reveal a grotesquely made-up face with bulging eyes. The mouth opened in a silent scream, revealing a rotted tongue. People cried out and snapped pictures. We were all sufficiently freaked out now. But little did we know things were about to get much, much worse. A few minutes later, the tractor abruptly slowed to a stop. The headlights illuminated a dead end, just a solid wall of cornstalks towering over us. "Why are we stopping?" someone asked nervously. The driver, dressed as a scarecrow with a tattered flannel shirt and floppy hat, turned around. "Sorry, folks. Looks like we've got ourselves a little situation here. Just need to back up and get on the right path." He shifted the tractor into reverse. The engine rumbled and choked. After a few violent shudders, it sputtered and died. An uneasy silence engulfed us. "Everything okay?" a woman asked. The driver frowned and turned the key again. The engine wheezed weakly but did not start. That's not good," he muttered. "Looks like we've broken down." "Broken down?" someone cried. "Are you kidding me?" Panicked voices overlapped as people demanded to know what was happening. The driver held up his hands. "Now don't you all worry, I'll hike back to the barn and get the backup tractor. Shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. Y'all just sit tight." With that, he hopped down and disappeared into the corn stalks, the dry leaves crunching under his boots. We all looked around anxiously. A chilly breeze rustled through the stalks and creaked the wooden wagon boards. Very faintly, I heard screams and evil laughter echoing from deeper in the maze. We were stranded out here in the middle of nowhere. Sarah gripped my arm. "I don't like this. We need to get out of here." "He said to wait here," Tyler argued. "He'll be right back." Mike nervously scanned the darkness. "I don't know, man. I've got a bad feeling. I think we should start walking back." People debated what to do. Most wanted to head out on foot, but a few worried the driver would return soon and didn't want to risk getting lost in the maze. While they argued, I peered out into the rows of corn, looking for any sign of the driver returning. All I saw was an endless ocean of jutting stalks. That's when the noises began. At first it was subtle, a soft scraping, like something moving through the dried husks and leaves. I heard faint moans carried on the wind. "Guys, shh, listen," I hissed. Everyone fell quiet. The sounds grew steadily louder, circling all around us. It was as if the corn itself had come alive. Then, to our horror, ghastly shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Crooked figures shrouded in tattered cloth, hobbling toward us. Their faces were pale and gaunt, lips curled back over rotten teeth. Twisted claws extended from their hands as they reached toward the wagon. People screamed and scrambled back. Go, go, go. The second those foul creatures laid hands on the wagon, we leapt over the sides and ran blindly into the stalks. We tore through the maze, corn scratching our arms and faces. The things pursued us, howling horribly. In the chaos, we all got separated. I found myself alone, my heart hammering. I stumbled through the darkness with no idea where I was. When I finally stopped to catch my breath, I realized the awful sounds had ceased. An unnatural stillness surrounded me. The cornstalks stood like sentinels, trapping me within their domain. I turned slowly, afraid of what I might see. In the distance, a faint orange glow flickered through the stalks. Campfire light? Or maybe the tractor had returned. Desperate, I hurried toward it. As I drew closer, I smelled wood smoke and heard low chanting. I crept forward and peered between the stalks. In the small clearing, a ring of robed figures swayed around a burning pyre. Their hoods were pulled low, faces lost in shadow. Torches cast flickering light over a horrific sight. A body sprawled across an altar, lifeless limbs spilling over the sides. I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. Slowly, silently, I backed away from the terrible scene. Once I was at a safe distance, I turned and ran at full speed. Images of ritual sacrifice filled my mind. I was so panicked I almost slammed right into the thing that next crossed my path. I skidded to a halt just in time and choked back a cry of terror. Before me stood a scarecrow crucified upon a wooden cross, his limp straw arms stretched out as if pleading for help. His burlap face was colorless and expressionless, stitched into a look of anguish. He appeared lifeless, held fast to the cross with thick ropes. I crept closer, studying the eerie scarecrow. As I watched, his head slowly turned toward me. My heart nearly stopped. His eyes were two dark pits staring deep into mine. His lips parted and a gravelly moan escaped. I stumbled back, suppressing a scream. This was no decoration. It was alive. The scarecrow's wrists suddenly flexed against their bindings. With a snap, his left hand broke free of the ropes. He wrenched his other arm loose and ripped the ropes from his chest in one powerful motion. Then he turned his ominous black gaze back to me. I didn't hesitate. I turned and ran faster than ever through the maze, not daring to look back. The scarecrow's feet thudded against the dirt in pursuit. His moans echoed around me as I hurtled blindly through the stalks. Suddenly, I slammed into something firm yet yielding. Another person! Help me! I shrieked. Hands grasped my shoulders and I lashed violently out of instinct. Hey, it's me! Came a familiar voice. Tyler! I sobbed in relief. Mike and Sarah stood behind him looking terrified. Did you see them? Sarah whispered frantically. The weird creatures, they're everywhere. The scarecrow's moans sounded dangerously close now. The others heard him too and cried out fearfully. This way, come on, Mike yelled. We took off running again. My lungs burned and my legs ached, but I didn't dare stop. Suddenly I realized the ground felt soft and spongy beneath me. The corn thinned into a wide, marshy clearing. Our feet splashed through inches of chilly swamp water. Something snaked past my ankle and I yelped. We didn't get far before shadowy silhouettes rose up around us, slowly emerging from the bog one by one. They were like no monster I'd ever seen. Tall, pale figures draped in moldy cheesecloth that clung wetly to their skeletal limbs. Their faces were milky and eyeless, mouths gaping in silent screams. We backed away slowly until our heels met water. The foul creatures closed in, floating toward us with arms outstretched. Frantically, I looked around for an escape route. That's when I noticed the lights. Tiny flickering flames dotted the distance like orange fireflies. They bobbed through the cornstalks, slowly coming closer. I realized with horror that they were more creatures, approaching with their lanterns and torches. We were surrounded. Mike gripped my hand, his eyes wide with fear. Tyler and Sarah clung to each other as the monsters closed in. This was it. After the horrors we'd witnessed tonight, we were destined to join the dead. The evil beings were inches away now. They're scorched from emerald flames. Their arms stretched toward us hungrily, eager to rip life from our young flesh. I braced myself and screamed as bony hands grabbed me. Cut! A voice yelled abruptly. The scarecrow holding my arms paused mid-moan and straightened up, dropping the act. The other creatures stepped back and removed their masks, revealing grinning farmhands. The fog machine switched off and headlights blazed on. Mike blinked in confusion. What's going on? The tractor driver swaggered up, chuckling. Surprise ending! I stared in bewilderment. Wait, so this was all part of the show? You bet. He grinned. Once we broke down, it was time to pull out all the stops. We've been secretly following and tormenting y'all through the harshest parts of the maze. Scared you real good, didn't we? The sacrifice from the clearing waved cheerfully. You guys totally fell for it. Your reactions were priceless. Best group tonight by far, the headless scarecrow added, giving me a friendly pat. My adrenaline was still pumping as I looked around at the animated monsters, now laughing and chatting amicably with us. It had all been an act. The hayride employees burst into applause at their successful prank. We climbed back aboard the tractor, and it roared to life, this time driving straight back to the farm. My friends and I collapsed into relieved laughter. We'd get them back next year for sure. But as the wagon carried us out of that cornfield, I felt eyes watching from the darkness. When I glanced over my shoulder, the night remained still, but my spine tingled as if unseen things yet lurked in the shadows, ready for their own twisted games to begin.